Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Harvey Weinstein is guilty. The jury delivered the verdict against the former movie mogul on 2 counts, first-degree commission of a criminal sexual act and third-degree rape. He was acquitted of 2 more serious charges of predatory sexual assault and first-degree rape. He faces a total sentence of up to 29 years in prison. The charges in Weinstein's New York rape trial involved 2 women, production assistant Miriam Haley and then aspiring actor Jessica Mann. But over 100 women have accused the once powerful Hollywood producer of sexual assault, rape, and misconduct. The Weinstein case propelled the Me Too movement onto the national and global stage. Weinstein was ordered to be taken to jail immediately after the verdict was announced, but was first taken to Bellevue Hospital after his attorney said he was experiencing heart palpitations. Amber Gutierrez, one of Weinstein's accusers, who in 2015 reported him to the New York police and later recorded him admitting he groped her, reacted to the verdict.
I could say that right now I'm happy to see that those years that I lost of my life are getting back. Of course, there is a lot of work to do, and I'm here to being there and speak to people so that a situation like this would never happen again. And yeah, this is my mission right now.
Weinstein's sentencing hearing is set for March 11th. We'll have more on the story after headlines with Tarana Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement, and the award-winning actor, filmmaker, and activist Rosanna Arquette. 7 Democratic presidential candidates will take the debate stage tonight in South Carolina as the state gears up for its primary Saturday. Among the contenders are 2 billionaires, Tom Steyer and Mike Bloomberg. Joe Biden holds a slight edge over Bernie Sanders going into the debate, according to recent polling. Meanwhile, Mike Bloomberg's campaign is reportedly planning an anti-Sanders media blitz in the wake of his landslide victory in Nevada over the weekend. In related news, yet more damning comments made by former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg surfaced last week, in which he vows to defend the banks if elected president and jokes about droning his political opponents. He also called progressives and fellow presidential candidate Senator Elizabeth Warren scary. The remarks were reportedly made at a private event for Goldman Sachs in 2016. Listen closely.
My first campaign platform would be to defend the banks. You don't know how that's going to sell in this country. But seriously, somebody's got to stand up and do it. We need a healthy banking system that's willing to take risks, because that's what creates the jobs for everybody.
Meanwhile, frontrunner Bernie Sanders has faced attacks following his praise of some aspects of Cuban leader Fidel Castro's government. On CBS's 60 Minutes, Sanders stated he opposed the authoritarian nature of Castro's rule, but lauded Cuba's literacy program. Sanders reiterated his comments on a CNN town hall Monday night.
They went out and they helped people learn to read and write. You know what? I think teaching people to read and write is a good thing. I have been extremely consistent and critical of all authoritarian regimes all over the world, including Cuba, including Nicaragua, including Saudi Arabia, including China, including Russia. I happen to believe in democracy, not authoritarianism.
Cuban Americans in Florida hit back at the remarks, as did some of Sanders' presidential rivals, including Pete Buttigieg, who tweeted, after 4 years of looking on in horror as Trump cozied up to dictators, we need a president who will be extremely clear in standing against regimes that violate human rights abroad. We can't risk nominating someone who doesn't recognize this, he said. In India, protests in New Delhi have left 7 people dead Monday, with scores of people hospitalized as President Trump continued his official visit there. Police unleashed tear gas and smoke grenades against crowds who were protesting the new anti-Muslim citizenship law. Both pro- and anti-U.S. demonstrations rocked New Delhi and other cities around India. Meanwhile, Trump held a news conference in New Delhi today in which he called on liberal Supreme Court justices Sonia Sotomayor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg to recuse themselves from, quote, Trump-related cases. Former Egyptian dictator Hosni Mubarak has died at the age of 91. Egyptian state news announced the death today. Mubarak was the authoritarian president of Egypt for 30 years before being forced to step down amidst the historic popular revolution in 2011 that was part of the Arab Spring. In 2017, Mubarak was acquitted on murder charges related to his violent crackdown on protesters in 2011, which killed hundreds of people. He spent 6 years behind bars before his release. His death comes less than a year after his successor, Mohamed Morsi, died after collapsing in court last June. A British court has started deliberations on whether to extradite Julian Assange to the United States, where he faces espionage charges and up to 175 years in prison for his role in publishing classified documents exposing U.S. war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. A crowd of supporters, including Pink Floyd co-founder Roger Waters and fashion designer Vivienne Westwood, rallied in central London to demand his release. This is Julian Assange's lawyer, Jennifer Robinson.
WikiLeaks has published evidence of war crimes, human rights abuse and corruption the world over. It's for this that Julian Assange sits in a high-security prison, facing 175 years in prison in the United States. As you've heard today, this case is an abusive process. It's an abusive process and it's a political offence.
A verdict in Julian Assange's extradition case is not expected until at least this summer. As the coronavirus continues to spread, the White House requested $1.25 billion in emergency funding to address the crisis Monday. The Trump administration also said it'll use more than $500 million meant for addressing the Ebola virus, a move the chair of the House Appropriations Committee called profoundly disturbing. New York Senator Chuck Schumer said Monday Trump's funding request was too little too late. This comes just weeks after Trump's proposed budget for 2021 cut funding for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention by 16%. On a state visit to India Tuesday, President Trump said he believed China was getting coronavirus under control and said, quote, "I think that is a problem that is going to go away." But as the rate of infection in China slows, infections are spreading around the globe, particularly in South Korea, Italy and Iran. Cases have also been identified in Lebanon, Israel, Kuwait and Afghanistan. The death toll worldwide is more than 2,700, with over 80,000 cases of infection. In other news from China, a court sentenced bookseller Gui Minhai to 10 years in prison. The Chinese-Swedish owner of a Hong Kong-based bookstore first disappeared in 2015 before reappearing in Chinese custody several months later. He was detained again in 2018. Human rights and press freedom advocates called his detention politically motivated since he published sensitive materials on China's ruling elite, including President Xi Jinping. In Haiti, a gun battle outside the presidential palace between police and soldiers ended in the killing of one soldier Sunday as political unrest continues to mount. Police officers and their supporters were protesting poor working conditions and a prohibition on unionizing. This comes as anti-government demonstrations have been rocking Haiti for months, calling for the ouster of the president. This is a protester speaking Sunday.
Police aren't paid. People are hungry. Everyone has problems. People can't pay for their homes. Police can't do anything with the 3,000 guards they are paid. People are out on the street to demand money from Petro-Caribe, which Covenel and Martel have robbed. We demand the arrest of Covenel for him to go to jail.
Carnival celebrations in Port-au-Prince were canceled following the weekend violence. A UN envoy for Haiti warned last week political turmoil is pushing the country deeper into recession, weakening national institutions, including the police force, and has put 4.6 million people in need of humanitarian aid. In Ontario, Canada, police forcibly removed Indigenous activists from a railway line Monday, where they were staging a protest against TransCanada's 400-mile coastal gas-linked pipeline in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. 10 members of the Mohawk Nation were arrested. In Australia, Norwegian oil company Equinor announced it was abandoning plans to deepwater drill in the Great Australian Bight Marine Park. Equinor is now the third major oil company to pull out of drilling in the Bight after BP and Chevron, following a long campaign by Indigenous leaders, activists and locals who are hoping to have the marine park recognized as a World Heritage Site. JP Morgan Chase announced Monday it'll stop providing financial services to companies pursuing oil and gas exploitation of the Arctic and phase out loans to the coal industry. J.P. Morgan will, however, still finance oil and gas projects outside the Arctic region. The announcement comes just days after a leaked report by J.P. Morgan warned the planet is facing irreversible damage due to the worsening climate crisis. The bank is one of the biggest financial backers of the fossil fuel industry and other leading polluters. In San Francisco, a federal appeals court ruled in favor of the Trump administration ban on letting family planning clinics refer patients for abortions by depriving these clinics of federal funds. The decision on the so-called gag rule lifts injunctions granted by 3 lower courts. Planned Parenthood said, quote, "The gag rule puts up egregious barriers for people with low incomes to get birth control and preventive care like STI testing, education, and cancer screenings. Before being forced out of Title X, Planned Parenthood served 40% of patients in the program," they said. Planned Parenthood left Title X last year rather than comply with the Trump rule. The Supreme Court said Monday it'll take up a gay rights case to decide whether the city of Philadelphia can exclude a Catholic agency that refuses to work with same-sex couples from the city's foster care system. Philadelphia stopped working with Catholic Social Services in 2018, and since then, a unanimous 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit ruled against the agency. Leslie Cooper, deputy director of the ACLU LGBT and HIV project, said in a statement, quote, "We already have a severe shortage of foster families willing and able to open their hearts and homes to these children. We cannot afford to have loving families turned away or deterred by the risk of discrimination." Senator Bernie Sanders has unveiled his plan to introduce free universal child care if elected president. Under the proposal, child care would be available to all families regardless of income, start at infancy, and include free pre-kindergarten. The plan also would ensure living wages to educators and provide access to higher education and training for all caregivers. The $1.5 trillion proposal would be funded through taxes on the wealthiest Americans. MSNBC host Chris Matthews apologized on air to Bernie Sanders after receiving widespread backlash and calls to resign for comparing Sanders' landslide win in the Nevada caucuses to the Nazi takeover of France.
As I watched the one-sided results of Saturday's Democratic caucus in Nevada, I reached for an historical analogy and used a bad one. I was wrong to refer to an event from the last days, or actually the first days of World War II. Senator Sanders, I'm sorry for comparing anything from that tragic era in which so many suffered, especially the Jewish people, to an electoral result in which you were the well-deserved winner. This is going to be a hard-fought, heated campaign of ideas. In the days and weeks and months ahead, I will strive to do a better job myself of elevating the political discussion.
The University of California, Santa Cruz announced it'll provide graduate student workers with a stipend of $2,500 in response to a wildcat strike protesting the unaffordable cost of living on low teaching salaries. Organizers welcomed the announcement but said they would continue to push for additional compensation, to expand the financial relief to other campuses, and to negotiate the terms of any agreement as part of a union contract. And trailblazing African-American mathematician Katherine Johnson died Monday at the age of 101. Johnson played a key role at NASA, where her calculations helped put an American in space for the first time in the 1961 Mercury mission, made John Glenn the first American to orbit the Earth in 1962, and landed Neil Armstrong and Apollo 11 on the moon in 1969. In 2015, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Obama. The hit 2016 film Hidden Figures portrayed the widely unrecognized work of Johnson and other black women at NASA during the space race. Author Margot Lee Shetterly, who wrote the book Hidden Figures that the Hollywood film was based on, paid tribute to Johnson on Twitter, writing, "My life's honor to tell the story of Katherine Johnson's contributions to NASA, science, our country, and Hampton Roads, Virginia. Her brilliance helped us to see and celebrate other hidden figures in history. You changed the narrative. Godspeed, Katherine Johnson," she wrote. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.